In this video, I'm going to give you a focusing tip that's going to help you to produce consistently sharper images. One of the biggest mistakes that we see new photographers making is not using the correct autofocus mode. Now admittedly, there are lots of different autofocus modes and it can be quite confusing. So today I'm going to give you a top tip that will help you to nail focus in the perfect spot on a consistent basis. And consistency is what good photography is all about. If you can be consistent, then your hit rate's going to go up and in turn you're going to become a better photographer. Now if you have an image that's out of focus or it's been badly focused in the wrong position, it's not something that you can fix with a computer in Photoshop with editing. You've got to get it right in camera. It's the photographer's job to make sure that the picture has been well focused. If it isn't well focused, it goes in the bin, or at least it should do. Before we do anything, we've got to check that your lens is set to automatic focus. Now generally there's a little switch on the lens barrel that says AF or MF. We're going to set it to AF for automatic, and we're going to tell the camera and the lens that we want the camera to spring into life and to activate the autofocus mode. So what's the difference between manual and autofocus? Well, in manual focus you need to bring the lens into focus by adjusting the ring at the front. In autofocus, the technology inside the lens and inside the camera, that's going to do all the hard work for you. When you half press that shutter button, the camera's going to spring into life, it's going to look for an area of contrast to focus on, it's going to achieve focus, and then you can just continue pressing that shutter button and take the shot. Now at the same time that you half press that shutter button and the camera achieves focus, you'll probably hear a beep. Now that beep is telling you that the camera is focused and it's ready to shoot. Now alongside the beep, you will also have visual indicators as you're looking through the viewfinder. They'll either be red dots, red squares, green squares, whichever way it is your camera manufacturer makes it apparent that the camera's in focus. Now the problem is, if you have it set up to focus on anywhere in the scene and you've got these red dots flashing up all over the place, the camera could potentially pick up on something that you don't want to be in focus. If you're photographing a flower and you want the stamen to be the sharp part, it might pick up on a background or a foreground petal. If you're photographing a person and you want the eye to be critically sharp, it might pick up on the ear or the tip of the nose. You need to be able to set your camera so that you can tell it exactly where you want it to focus, and we do that with single point autofocus. Now all cameras are made slightly differently, but the vast majority will feature single point autofocusing. I mainly shoot Canon, and on Canon cameras look for the focus point button, usually on the top right of the camera. You can hold down this button and use either the command dial or the joystick on the back of the camera to cycle through the different focus point modes. On a Nikon camera, find AF area mode and cycle through until you find single point. So now that we've selected single point autofocusing, we can be much more targeted and much more specific. If we're shooting a portrait, for example, we can move that single point directly over the eye, which is going to mean that that eye is going to be specifically the sharpest point of the image. It's not going to pick up on an ear or the background, it's going to be specifically on the point that you've told it to pick up on, directly over the eye. So those little red dots or squares, they're known as your autofocus points, and the amount of autofocus points that you'll have available to you will largely depend on which camera that you're using. On the Canon 5D Mark IV I have 61 autofocus points, whereas on the 6D that I used to use there was only 9 autofocus points. It doesn't really matter, the main thing is that you're using them. If you've got 61 it just means you've got more options. If you've got 3, you've got 3 options. The main thing is, if you can use single point autofocusing, you without doubt will get sharper shots on a more consistent basis. Now of course other factors come into play. If you're shooting movement, you're going to need a fast enough shutter speed in order to get a sharp image. But if you can get this technique nailed down, if you can make sure that your pictures are well focused time after time after time, then you're going to eliminate one of the biggest hurdles to overcome. If you know that your pictures are sharp, it's one less thing for you to worry about, and you're going to be closer to being a master of that camera. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, please subscribe, stay safe during the lockdown, we look forward to seeing you again soon.